You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of the best in contemporary a cappella. I'm Evan, coming at you from Vancouver, Canada, so please excuse my iPhone quality audio for this intro. We're very happy to have Ricky Jabarin and Christopher Little of A Cappella Productions on the show this week. Ricky is a production engineer at ACP, was a car administrative manager, arranges for groups, founded the Code of Conduct, and his current semi-pro group, DolCe Vocals. Chris is also a professional arranger for ACP, has multiple car noms, and is the music director for semi-pro group Vox Pop from DC, whose cover of Runaway Baby you're hearing in the background. They're both great guys and have some great insight on transitioning into the post-collegiate life and integrating into the a cappella community. Real quickly, if you have time to share your favorite episodes with people in your group or to review us on iTunes, whatever you can manage, that'd be a huge, huge help to us. Without any further ado, this week's episode of Head Voice.
Hey everyone, we're here with Ricky Jabarin and Christopher Little from A Cappella Productions, and we're super excited to have them here. So the first topic that I wanted to kind of start off this episode with is post-collegiate acapella, and so you guys are both in respective groups. Chris, you're in Vox Pop, and Ricky, you are in DolCe.
Yep, that's
so
right.
I just wanted to ask you, what was it like transitioning from college to post-collegiate acapella?
You know, I really enjoy the switch, to be honest. As a director, I feel like in a college group, you can have so many voices that are so great. Like, they're so unique, and that's what gives you, like, that really cool sound. But working with so many voices is tiring for everyone, kind of emotionally, and like what exactly are you going to be able to do musically with everyone all the time too, right? So for me, making the switch to a professional group like Vox Pop is that we now have each individual voices doing their specific parts, as opposed to there's a section of people doing this. Sometimes we still use sections and when it's proper, but I think it changes how the group like identity is, because it's like this is my part. It's like I am the drums, like I am the bass, like a band sort of would be. So yeah, I think that sort of making each voice part more efficient about how they're in the space is really fascinating to me, and that's what I think is really cool about the different sizing of like vocal bands that are out there, because sometimes you have like 4, 5, 6, like it all just depends, but it's really cool.
Yeah, musically it's a very interesting transition, but when you're switching to post-collegiate setting, everyone has different lives. You don't have 16 college kids who have pretty much a similar schedule. They have classes from 8 in the morning to maybe 5, but you also have you're working with singers who have 9-to-5 jobs, or they have night shifts, and some of them have kids, some of them are married. So you're working with different lifestyles, and it's really interesting to get everyone together and just to meet and rehearse for a few hours.
Yeah, I would say actually probably the biggest difference in post-collegiate versus collegiate is your time to do it. Like, in my college group, we rehearse 3 times a week. Like, that sounds crazy to me in my day now. So, which, is married to how many people are in the group sometimes, too. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So you guys both taught a class together at the Boston Sings Festival called Your Aka Life After College. So something that I'm personally interested in as somebody who's around your guys' age-ish is like, so I know, Ricky, you also... your college group, the Code of Conduct, you started that group as well. So can you talk about what it's like? Because I'm sure a lot of people that were in collegiate know what it's like when, especially if you get on whatever the e-board or whatever it is of a group, and you just start getting, more and more responsibility, and you care more and more, and you're thinking all the time about this group. And then all of a sudden, one day you're just not in the group anymore. Like, how is that, for you guys, how has that been to move on to that, to, the groups that you're in now? And how much do you allow yourself to be, still involved in the groups that you were so invested in back in college?
Right. I will admit it was a little challenging leaving the Code of Conduct. It was a group that I started, with my buddy, and I've invested a lot of arrangements for them, and we worked really hard for the competitions and all our gigs and whatnot. And to leave was bittersweet because I knew that I could still be involved by arranging for them or coming back to help coach, but unfortunately I'm not able to sing with them. So that's sort of what motivated me to start a new group when I moved to DC, and I said I still want to sing, and I also want to get involved. But I also want to stay involved with the code of conduct. So I arranged for them, but I also started seeking out singers around the DC area just so I could fulfill the need to sing in my area.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, I music directed at JMU, the Overtones, and I was very much involved, right? Like, we love our groups, we love the people in our groups, and I felt that I needed to sort of like take a step back and sort of take a break year, I guess, as it were. And I don't know, I think that was helpful, but I realized that I couldn't not do it. So then, I found Vox Pop, and I plugged myself in just sort of like on a base level of like, this is what I'm doing, I'm here and I'm enjoying it. And then I realized that for me, it's more than just being a part of it. It's about like having a say in like what that conversation means. So then that led to me being president, and now I'm music director, to be a little more like, I don't know, in the trenches about what I want to say as an artist, I guess.
So I just wanted to talk about next how when students are graduating, they kind of have the option, okay, now I want to continue singing in a cappella music, but don't really know what group is right for me, or can't really find one in my area that's my genre or my style. So I think a lot of people consider starting a group, and starting your own group from scratch post-collegiate is a big task to take on, I think. I think for one, you don't even know where to start or what to do or who to talk to. So what would you say is good advice for someone who's looking to start a group, and what first steps should they look to do?
Right. So when you figure out where you're going to be at after college, what you want to do is scope out the area. So the internet is your best friend. So just Google, figure out who's around there. You can even post in the CASA Facebook forum that exists out there. Say, hey, I'm new to this area. I'm looking for singers who want to collaborate or to sing with. So that's the first start. Once you figure out who's in the area, you want to participate in some of their activities. So if they're hosting shows, networking events, that is your chance to go and meet people. It's no guarantee that you're going to get into the group that you're interested in, but you might find other singers that are looking for a group. So then you'll have that opportunity to chat and figure out whether or not you want to start a group or find other singers in the area too. So
to jump off of that, Ricky and I've had a lot of conversation about how exactly do you do that, and yeah, the internet is super helpful, but you sort of just have to, you have so many different options to be able to do your research and find what's out there. But I think the truest and easiest way of doing that is by physically going to those concerts, or, as musicians, we're always gravitating to what is something that's unique and cool for us. Even if I weren't in an a cappella group, I would likely go to an a cappella show. And meeting people in that perspective is great, we both like this, we both love this, maybe we should do it ourselves, because there's sometimes where you're like, oh, I'm not Facebook friends with people, and I don't want to send a random message here or there, but if you show up, then you get to meet people, and that's how human interaction is. So let's embrace it.
Yeah, and what I also found helpful was just participating in non-singing activities. So after college, I said I wanted to judge for an ICCA competition. So I'm through judging, I met a lot of post-collegiate people who come from like various parts of the surrounding area, and then Chris and I decided to go to our first So Jam this past November, and met so many great people that are looking to collaborate. So we have people that aren't even in our area who want to sing and make music, and that's another thing. Like, you don't need to just sing with people in your area, but you can take advantage of the entire community and just make music through recordings or whatnot. So that I think that's another benefit we have to being a part of the a cappella community.
Well, and I would just add one thing to that is, for all of these things, like, there's going to be an initial push that you just have to do. Like, so be prepared that it's not just going to be an easy thing of like, oh, I can just sidestep and do this thing. Like, you do have to put yourself out there, because you don't necessarily have the backing of a group of being like, yeah, I'm part of Faux Pas, I'm part of the Overtones, so it's all about your individual person, and like that part is a little challenging to sort of swallow, but like once you do it, it's honestly so easy, because it's just being yourself, right? Like, so
of course.
So I have a kind of simplistic follow-up to that question. So I think it's really easy for groups, I know that in college I was this way for a good part of it, to just exist in your bubble, whether that's in your school or in your city, and you can get gigs, and you can perform and gig with other groups, and it feels like you're doing something, but really it's ultimately pretty insular. So what do you guys think is the value of entering the a cappella community, whether it's collegiate or post-collegiate?
I love this question. I felt that way at school, of like, oh, like, my group is great, like what we're doing is awesome, and like everyone on campus knows that, or as I thought. But it's so easy to live in your own bubble, and I think that by bursting your bubble and like making that initial push, you're adding to the conversation of like, what is a cappella? Like, what is excellent? Do I strive for excellent, or do I strive for like goofy, funny, for a purpose? Like, and like, you can still be excellent in those things, obviously, but being part of a larger community helps us actually narrow our focus of like what we're all achieving to, and like that can still be different, but it as a collective like conversation, it's better to be part of it than to like try to have your own conversation, and then when you end up talking to someone in some other conversation, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, like, this is foreign. Mm-hmm. So making that, I guess, bridging the gap between what your insular bubble could look like versus how you add yourself to the conversation.
Yeah, and if exposing yourself to all these different things outside of what you already know will inspire you to push the limit and try different things, or even experiment with different styles. So I mean, one thing that I think, the one point that we pushed out in our class at Boss was, you have to acclimate yourself in not just your general area, but also with the entire a cappella industry. What else is out there, and how can I be creative and put out some of my own stuff to contribute.
Yeah, and I think that by ingesting all of those different styles that are out there, like sponging it all in, you might find something that you're more excited about than you've ever thought. It's like, oh wow, you guys did like this, I don't know, dynamic thing that I've never heard done that well. Like, I want to research that. Or like, I'm really interested in like world music, like doing something that's not like of the typical a cappella format, right? And there are groups that are doing that, and it's awesome to see that they're like getting the recognition of doing those things.
I think one great example is Ryoton, who
they're at Boss,
who performed at Boss, and so many so many people in the audience who never really been exposed to them, or just became so inspired. Like now they're listening to Radiotone music. Now they're being influenced by those certain sounds. Yeah. So that may shape how future groups end up sounding.
Mm-hmm. What you guys are saying is kind of reminding me of, I'm sure, have you guys seen the post that Rob Dietz made on the Casa page that got 1,000 likes or whatever? Yeah, sure. So with that, like, for you guys, in your opinion, how do you walk that line between trying to be that sponge and trying to take everything or as much as you can in from the acapella community and trying to do something that is original and speaks to your own truth? Like, how do you navigate that?
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
That is a really good question. I was actually, this is really great. Thank you for this. What I would say to that is, while being a sponge, you're receptive to hearing what can be. It's almost like painting. Like, take that into example. What if you only have reds and blues, and then you see someone paint and they have green in their painting? It's like, oh, okay, I think I can do green, so maybe that can be something that I also do. Like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And you wouldn't know that unless you saw that there was green out there. So I think that there's still a way for you to be, like, authentic in how you produce your craft, but you also sort of need to know what is in the marketplace, add a new skill, or even just influences, like listening to new music, whether that's Lauryn Hill for some people, or like JoJo, or I love JoJo, by the way. Like how that artist views the world, you borrow that lens when you listen to their music. So that's also part of how you move through the world in a way. And that can shape how you create in the future, I guess.
Snaps for that.
Yes. And you also have to think about why they did this certain thing in their music. If you're just gonna take from that and not understand why it's being executed, it won't feel authentic at all. So whenever you arrange music or whenever you perform, you always want to think about what message am I trying to send, and will it feel real to the audience? And I think that's very important to constantly remind yourself as you're building your craft and creating new content, new material.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, like, authenticity is such a strange thing, because really it's the easiest thing that we can ever do, because it's just being yourself and not trying to put a lens of how other people view you, or like how you move through the world. But that is the hardest thing for anyone to do. Like, you're just like, oh, but I can't not think about how other people sort of ingest what I'm putting out there.
It's also difficult in acapella because most acapella music are covers. So you're trying to arrange in an original cover, like, so that's something that will always be a conflict, and I think that's
where you could move into going into original music. Like,
exactly, yeah.
Groups are doing it, and I think that is one of the new, like, brave new worlds that we're about to be in the acapella industry. So I'm excited for that.
For sure.
So as a follow-up to this, I just wanted to kind of touch on more of the logistical side of it. So both of you have arranged and do arrange. And I think one of the big decisions that post-collegiate groups have to decide is, how do we want to get arrangements, and where do we want to get them from? Do we want them to be external? Do we want them to be someone in the group doing all of them? Do we want to be collaborative? So what sort of tips and advice would you give to start a new group that's trying to figure out the best option for them?
I think it depends on who you have in the group. So, when I started DolCe, I've already known how to arrange, so I felt comfortable with creating arrangements for my own group and do house arrangements. The challenge was I didn't know who my singers were, so I created one arrangement of Habits by Tuvlo, and we never sang it in public because I arranged it before I even knew who the singers were, and it just didn't match our style. But over time, we were, as I was able to figure out, what everyone's timbre was, their tone and whatnot, I was able to play up to their strengths and create effective arrangements. But if you are at a disadvantage where you don't have an arranger, don't hesitate to reach out to a friend that can put something together. It may not be right the first time because whoever you ask to arrange for you will not know what your singers sound like. But at least you have something to play with, and then from there you can make some tweaks and then let that influence how your future arrangements will sound like.
Mm-hmm. I would say, if you kind of have the question of should we do our own in-house arrangement, should we get something else, if you have the option, maybe do both. Like, I think there is merit in defining a group sound that already exists when you get like a new members, let's say, or starting a group on its own. There's always sort of a new variable that you have to mitigate a little bit anyway. So I think that you can benefit by having external arrangements come in to see exactly what one like you could evaluate skill level, but also like by it being a style change for people. It's like, how do you rise to the occasion? Like, you need to keep yourself fresh and not just feel like, oh, like I'm just doing the exact same thing that I've been used to for the past, X amount of years. I do think that when you move to, or if you are moving to, because there's still multiple different types of groups out there, but when you have less voices, it's more important to sort in the arranging process of like knowing exactly what that voice is capable. And so when you have multiple styles that you're trying to incorporate, I think that can be helpful, even if it's just like sort of a crowdsourcing brainstorming type. Like there's been a few arrangements that I just kind of arranged because I just wanted to arrange them, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll have Vox Pop like sing through them. Maybe it's actually a good choice for us, maybe it's not. But sort of staying flexible of knowing exactly what your voices collectively and individually sort of are capable will lead you to what works best for your group. And maybe that is having one person inside the group arrange for you. Maybe that's just getting a long-term client vendor association with someone who is doing it, whether that's a friend or a production company. I think that's whatever you are most comfortable with, I think.
Speaking to the style element that you kind of brought up, for post-collegiate, but also for, collegiate groups too, especially as we're approaching summer, that's when you get, all your kind of hits for the year is like centered in the summer. So what are your guys' just personal opinions on, aiming to have your group do the freshest, newest pop song by the newest starlet versus doing whatever music, especially when, that kind of translates to, if you're doing paid gigs, what your audience is trying to see, or and then the balance of that with whatever your group is passionate about.
So this has been something that we keep bringing up in Vox Pop. I think that the group will lend itself to what the group wants to do on the long run. So sometimes that will just take lots and lots of conversation over months. Sometimes that's just a simple conversation of, we should have an arsenal of songs that are radio hits that everyone knows and will be excited about, because that's what we would like to deliver for our people, For Vox Pop, we sort of talked about having a secondary repertoire so that we'll still be able to do gigs like that, or just have fun, right? Because like sometimes in an a cappella setting, you're like, okay, that was really good, but like this is their fifth angsty song, and I kind of want to smile, like. And so I think the more the group is together and you find what that group dynamic is, that will lend exactly to what you want to do. So at NAC, I had the ability to perform with Vox Pop. And when I found out that we were doing it, I was like, okay, we need to have a crowd-pleasing song that is just fun, because everyone has already been sitting through hours of a cappella at this point. So let's not give it so much of an a cappella show. And so I was like, maybe we do like an anthem style or something. I was like, okay, so something fast. And then I thought, Gloria Estefan is a wonderful artist and everyone loves her. And I was listening to Conga and I was like, wow, this could be really cool. Like, and so I kind of ran with the idea, and I like almost like made Vox Pop do it. I was like, I feel I found like every idea why it was the best choice for us, and I was like, I hope that everyone like buys in on this idea. And so we finally decided, no, maybe this would be a good fit for us, and it served the proper purpose. Like everyone was. Emotional energy was just down a little bit for everyone because they just went through like 10 different groups, and then we come out singing conga and everyone like got on their feet and they're like, yay, like it's not the same, like it's different, like it's a clear switch of group focus versus audience focus. So there are times where the group should be the focus. Like if you're doing like this power ballad and it's like epic, like who cares about the audience? Like, this is the moment that you're building up to and make it great. Mm-hmm. And that's how you're caring about your audience in that perspective. But when there's so many groups doing that on purpose, because it is a competition, you have to put the audience focus back into play and be like, okay, I need to give you what you want to hear. You want to sing along and you want to dance, you know?
Right. Yeah, and with my experience in DolCe, we're a 6-person group. So I'm not sure how Vox Pop works, but DolCe doesn't really have any governance. We don't have like a president or anyone who does has authority status or whatever. So we treat each other as a band, and we value each other's input, and we try to play up to everyone's individuality, their vocal styling. So we do talk about where each person in the group can succeed on certain songs. So we have one member saying, I think I would sound really good in a song like X's and O's, and then we're like, yeah, I totally agree, and then we run with it. So I think that's a great thing to have when you treat your group as a band, because everyone has equal input, and it would encourage them to throw in their ideas, and it does help the song selection process go more smoothly. So you don't have one music director or an assistant director saying like, I think you'd sound great with this song. We let the members say, I think I would sound great in this song, and if the group agrees, then we run with it. So I think that's something to try when you're working with like that many people in a small group.
Yeah.
So we're nearing the end of our episode today. So the final question that we like to ask our guests is, what sort of trends do you see in a cappella music that you're excited by, or you see are kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit? And also, what's on the agenda for you guys?
Good questions.
Yeah, give us a minute.
Yeah, I feel like we need to frame things a bit. So the first part, I did kind of allude to original music coming to be a big thing in the a cappella industry, which I'm like super jazzed about, especially now that we're having this conversation about like authenticity. It's like, okay, so like let's see how we can actually do it. So like that's really exciting. One like sub thing that sort of correlates with it is, I think that we're coming up to a place where like collaborations are going to be a big play. And super exciting when you're like, oh, I love this voice here and I love this voice here. Wouldn't it be awesome to put them together, even if it's for one project? Like, and that's already happening, and I love it. I think it's brilliant. I would say project-wise, I don't know. I'm looking to just keep diving in all areas, I guess, as it were, with arranging, with production, with collab, with original. I haven't figured out exactly what that's going to look like, but there's a few things on my radar that I'm trying to push. working with this guy is gonna be fun.
Yep. For me, I mean, I'm not. I can't always be sure what will happen. On my end, I'm moving to Philadelphia, so I'm actually really excited to see what the Philadelphia acapella scene will be like. So I'm looking forward to meeting new people and working with new groups or potentially creating more collaborations. One of the trends I think that excites me is world sounds. One memorable performance would be Sharp Attitude, where we have Archie just putting in her Carnatic voice into it, and you've talked about it in a previous episode. And then there's Acaphiliacs, who put out an album that, most of them are arranged by Jacob, and he threw in some worldly sounds there too. And that's something that I am passionate about too. Diversity was a big thing for me while in college. So I would love to see groups be exposed to what else is out there, and also embrace the diversity that's present. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
A big ol' yes to diversity from me. Thank you to Chris and Ricky for joining us today. We wish you guys luck, and we hope that you join us next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
New York City, please go easy.
New York City, please go easy on me tonight. New York City, please go easy on this heart of mine, 'cause I'm losing my lover to the arms of another. New York City, please go easy on me.
We did Frozen Chris. You had like a very angry face.
And we felt that too.
Dang
I
it.
was like, oh.